It is there we go. Test. Absolutely. This is Champ Franklin, and we are live here at our new location and an undisclosed location going live, bringing you intimate discoveries. And today we have an amazing show today that you are going to be exceedingly blessed. But before we do all of that, I have to, we got to set the foundation. That's right. Here we go. Welcome to Intimate Discoveries, Unveiling Connections, the podcast redefining the conversation around intimacy. In a world where connections often feel superficial, we dive deep, exploring the layers of what it truly means to be intimate. This isn't just another love talk, it's a groundbreaking journey through intimacies, cognitive, emotional, physical, and spiritual aspects in the modern age. In each episode, we peel back the layers of myths and truths, engaging with experts, sharing real life stories, and uncovering insights that challenge everything you thought you knew about intimacy. Whether you're navigating the complexities of love, seeking deeper connections, or just curious about the unspoken intricacies of human bond, Intimate Discoveries is your guide through the maze of modern intimacy. Tune in Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 4 p.m. as we unveil the secrets of truly meaningful connections. Intimate Discoveries, Unveiling Connections, where every episode is a step closer to understanding the heart and soul of intimacy. Yes, we are live, and I am posting. I see a couple people online looking right now. We get ready to post, so you can actually go on to my website, champfranklin.com, if you want to join in. I'm actually putting this on my on the reel, and we're going live. It is live and in colors. It's the link is posted on a Facebook page, and it's also going to be on champfranklinspeaks.com, where you can actually tune in to the broadcast. So we're here, we're live, and we're in color. So come on, come on, come on. If you are ready to get your life changed, let me see here. We are right here. And so today, I have a very special guest who is one of the classiest women that I've met, because I have met classy women in my life. Um, and so um, I wanted to be able to bring her to the to on the show, because we're looking at intimacy and wanted to talk to her about her new journey. Seeing that we had a unfortunate event with the passing of her husband recently, and so I know that we talk about divorce and we talk about how marriages, we said 50% of marriages end in divorce, but there are some that actually follow through on their promise, which is till death do us part. And right now we have an amazing woman who has she's on a new journey. She's in a space where um, life happens, and she's embracing a new chapter. And so what we're doing here is I'm gonna have a candid conversation with her, and and if you have questions, you can post it in there. But without further ado, um, Lauria, are you here? Mm-mm. Yeah. The thing is that this moment takes courage, right? This actually takes courage to be able to have a conversation, to be able to be vulnerable. Like we said in the intro, that um, we dive deep, right? We get into the conversations. We make sure that we ask the hard questions. We become vulnerable with each other. And so in this particular place, right? I want to invite. Let me see if I can get her in and come in as a speaker. Did you see the invite? Okay, for some reason it keeps taking you off. So if you want to move here, we won't have no one can see you, but we will share the mic in this particular case. Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. We were having some technical difficulties, but in spite of all that, we're going to go ahead and get right on into the conversation. And so without further ado, we have Lauria here. And so as we start our conversation, Lauria, all right, we're good to go. So how's it going?
It's going.
It's going?
It's a process. It's emotional. It's up and down, and it's it's a journey. It's definitely a journey that anyone that has lost just any individual in their life, it could be a parent, a child, a nephew, a cousin, or whomever. It's different levels of grieving, and it's definitely a difficult journey.
Yes.
And there's no time on it.
Mhm.
So
Right, absolutely. I must warn our listeners and viewers that at any moment, emotions can flare up. So if I start crying, I'm letting you know it's gonna happen. And if we get emotional, we're gonna keep going through. But I want to make sure I put that disclaimer out there because being emotionally available, being able to expand on your emotional vocabulary is the work that I've been doing, and so we want to make sure that that we explain that because when you're emotionally astute, you have the power, and this is one thing that I try to share with my listeners. You have the power to connect with individuals on an unprecedented level that you've never ever had before. And so one of the things that I recognize that during my relationship, during my marriage, during my life prior to me going to therapy and getting the help that I need is that I was emotionally numb for so many years, and being emotionally numb hindered that emotional connection that individuals in my life um, desire, like my ex-wife, my children. That was it. So that being said, I want to make sure that you know that we're here. So back to where we were, Lauria was telling us, about her. Just to give you a little bit back on her husband just passed away less than 2 months ago.
no,
Uh,
three.
3 months.
Yeah.
About 3 months ago, and so she's on her journey, and so we're having a conversation here today because I've known them for over a year. So, and that intimate connection is something that I saw real life in motion, where there was love, there was emotion, there was that commitment that we often talk about, but we rarely see individuals hanging there through the end. And so we'll continue to talk about where she is right now. Yes, Lord. So I have a question. Oh, do you want to share anything right now about your journey? Okay. All right. So I have a couple questions. Can you share like some dreams and aspirations that you and your husband had together?
Well, let me give your listeners just a little bit of background
Okay.
of our marriage, our relationship, our experiences, our intimacy. We have been, we were married 32 years. Um, we've known each other maybe about 40 years. So that journey for us, it was like a hill up and down. But when we met, my husband was 13 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we met, he was at a level in his life where he had been married before. He had children from a previous marriage. And here I am, this young woman just out of college, not knowing, not having any experiences about love or life or just the world. And as my mom told my husband, when he went to my parents to say, I love your daughter, I would like to marry her. And the first thing my mother said to him is that you are so worldly. And this is my daughter, my 27-year-old daughter, that she knows nothing about the world. She knows nothing about being in love. She thinks she does, about marriage and being a wife and being a mom. And you bring, you have children. So you are bringing a lot into, my mom said, little girl's relationship. You were bringing a lot from your previous life into my little girl's life. So we did. We ended up getting married, and it wasn't always easy. It wasn't always perfect. It wasn't always pretty. We had good times, bad times, in between times, down times. And there was a time when, and we can get to that later, where we were having issues in our marriage, our relationship. And we went to our pastor, our former pastor at that time. And I remember him saying to us, sometimes couples must separate in order to get back together. And I remember asking him, like, what do you mean by that? That is just what? Separate. And he said, yes. But the key to that is you have to remain focused and true and open and stick to your promise. The vows that you made were a promise to God. I'm not saying separate and go crazy, lose your mind or whatever. He said, but you two have to remain focused on each other. And the reason why you separated, you have to understand that in order to get back together. So we had a journey, and we had to understand communication, intimacy, touch, love. I mean, all is very broad. A relationship is very broad, and it's intricate. It's not just I'm in this relationship and that's it. Everything's going to fall into place. It takes work. It takes understand. It takes two people.
So when you said the pastor was talking about individuals need to separate. So in essence,
in order to get back
in
together.
order to get back together, it's that in this particular case, the couple separated in order to do a hard reset on the relationship. And that's what that was. We're going to separate, go through this process of hard reset, and then we're going to reestablish our connection. This time under different objectives, different type of different approach, and where you decided to create a new moment, and you all began living in that moment.
We did. And not only did we have Christian counseling, I remember our pastor also referred us to secular counseling. So we had both aspects. We had, the word of God, what this means and how we understand it. And then we had the secular part where, it just kind of brought the world together for us. It just kind of opened up our eyes outside of everything that what we thought was right or in that path of, I don't know, positivity. But it was an eye opener. It was an experience. I know that I learned a heck of a lot. And it took us 2 years. It took us 2 years, but we remained faithful, and we remained just steadfast, and we just stayed on it, and ended up here we are 32 years later.
Oh, beautiful! It's a beautiful story, and and what I witnessed with you and Archie was a love and a commitment that it didn't matter um, what he was going through, that he was gonna make sure that he did whatever he can for Lauria. This meant just walking Cooper, walking the dog. I'm wherever I can give my, and that's the thing that we talk about when we talk about intimacy and relationships, as far as becoming a reliable partner.
Mhm.
And so and doing stuff that I know that I can do, right?
Mhm.
Which was beautiful.
And it's what also helped our marriage is that, you know, we could not, we're not mind readers.
Mm-hmm.
We are not mind readers. And so we had to speak, talk, um, watch our words,
Mm-hmm.
watch, be mindful of how you speak to each other. Yeah, we are human and we get upset and we have emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and but we had to be mindful of our approach, because it just takes an instant to turn off,
Mm-hmm.
or it just takes an instant to get upset, or to lash out at somebody, or to say something mean or something just crude or inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't elevate a relationship. It certainly doesn't elevate what's going on. It will just escalate into
Escalate.
something else.
Yes, and so for the listeners, one of the things that I like to do is to bring in our definition of intimacy, and then see how this process revolutionized your marriage, so and caused you to sustain almost 40 years, right? Doing a hard reset and then redefining our approach. And so the definition that we use here at Intimate Discoveries is that intimacy is defined as a level of commitment, positive, affective, cognitive, and physical closeness that one experiences with a partner in a reciprocal relationship. Now, there are four different components of intimacy, which are cognitive, emotional, sexual, and spiritual intimacy. And so, they did the reset, one of the things that they started with communication, which is the cognitive um, intimacy in the relationship where they had this exchange. And so we can see that um, through their relationship. And so as I'm giving you that definition, how do you see that cognitive reciprocity, the the um, preservation of a safe space for both you and Archie, how you all were able to communicate more effective than you were before?
We, you know, it was a process where we had to understand what our beliefs
Mm-hmm.
and our thoughts were.
Mm-hmm.
And so those things help to shape your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Those things help to influence your relationship and how you interact with each other, how you are with one another, just being together as a couple. And so for us, I think that, there are different ways to understand your partner.
Mm-hmm.
the likes and the dislikes. And as a woman,
Right.
we tend to have a little, I'm going to use the word sensitive. We are a little bit more sensitive than men are. So, how we are approached and the things that our partner may say to us would probably come across differently than a man's approach, because how men are built, how women are built.
Well, sometimes we men can be sensitive too, very sensitive, about to the point of petty.
Could be petty.
Yeah, when it comes to just certain things. So it really just depends on the situation, I think, where that sensitivity can get the best of us.
Right.
And at the same time, it's important to now begin to have those conversations. Um, yes, and so where we have those conversations about um, how I can provide that safe space, because we always have to go back to that safe space where I can tell you my truth, I can share with you um, how I'm feeling, and then you respect my beliefs, right? Because your beliefs, you had very little to do with your belief system. What primarily what you believe is what your parents downloaded on your hard drive,
Nature or nurture.
right? And so going through that and preserving that safe space, how did your relationship emotionally evolve once you knew that Archie was committed? How did that change your daily interaction once you realized that he's committed, because he's showing up to the appointments, he's being reliable, I can see where he is, what he's doing, and he's now taking my side, right?
I think I think for me, when I always knew that he was committed. I always knew that he was committed. The part that he was committed to us, to redefining who we are as starting over again, was when he came to me, and we were separated at that time. And he said, I want to come back home. I need my family. I know it's going to take work. I know that I will do anything that you need me to do that will help us to. So I think at that moment I knew he was committed, and then I could see that he was putting his best foot forward. He was, we were doing the counseling, we were studying together, creating different moments, not only just date night, but just sitting down and just talking to each other,
Right.
and sitting to next to each other, and just rediscovering our relationship on the new us, the different, not new, different us.
Right. So I and that's good, because when you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and so what happened was that when Archie said that I'll do whatever I need, it was now a level of commitment that he was going to provide a safe space for you to fulfill that safety need for you in the marriage. And so establishing that recommitting, because remember, we talked about intimacy being a level of commitment. And so now that he has elevated his commitment to um, fulfilling that safety need, which he said, hey, I'll do whatever I need to do. I don't care. You tell me what I need to do, because I want to come back. I want my family full committed. I want you all back. And then once you begin to experience that, because remember, intimacy is an experience, right? You make sure that your partner experience a level of closeness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once that happened, right, and you begin to experience that on a consistent basis, then how did the emotional transformation begin?
I think for us, the transformational began when we had to put aside our, what people call, and a lot of people may not understand this, it's called cognitive biases.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And so that's when people have negative thoughts about their partner,
Mm-hmm.
and those negative thoughts influence negative behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for us, because we were going through such a difficult time, when you go through a difficult time in a relationship, there's so many emotions that are evolving, and there's anger and there's resentment,
Mm-hmm.
and you just want to lash out. I mean, we're all human. You just want to lash out at the person, and you want to, make them hurt like
Mm-hmm.
you are hurting.
Mm.
You want them to
Mm.
feel what you are feeling.
Mm.
So your behavior is going to show that you were going to react. And so I had to learn
Mm-hmm.
that I had to understand my hurt. I had to understand how I allowed myself to get to a
Mm-hmm.
place of feeling angry and resentful and just mad.
Mm-hmm.
I was mad. I was mad. I was
Mm-hmm.
mad at him. I was mad at the world. I was mad at
Mm-hmm.
everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to just understand that, you know, having those hurtful feelings, having those negative feelings, you have to learn how to replace those with
Mm-hmm.
something positive,
Mm-hmm.
with something favorable.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you hold on to it,
Right.
it's just not gonna work. It's just not gonna work. You have to find a way to move forward, to remove yourself from that hard place. You
Mm.
can't, you can visit that place, but you can't stay there. You
Right.
cannot stay there.
I remember going through therapy myself, and my therapist gave me the feelings wheel. And in this feelings wheel, you have these primary emotions, which is sad, joy, powerful, and angry, or mad. And only in each of those emotions were opposite of each other, but they lined up
Mm-hmm.
totally, in the circle. And so if you felt sad, you can look on the other side of that, that will get you to the other part of, get you from that negative to that positive emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And the other powerful part about what you were saying is about processing those emotions, that giving you that safe space allowed you to properly assign those experiences, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-mm.
So let's say when you're sad, right? You're upset.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about you're mad with everybody, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that you were mad. It's just that you were feeling neglected, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were feeling this in
It,
this, you
ignored,
ignored, right?
and yeah, it's
And
just you,
unvaluable. So
right.
and so instead of being mad, right, having that conversation with with Archie, y'all did this reset in council and everything else. It allowed you to properly assign
Mm-hmm.
those emotions,
Mm-hmm.
which was also all part of expanding your emotional
Right.
vocabulary, right?
Right.
Because I'm not mad. I'm jealous. I'm jealous that you go and have fun all the time. You leave me here with the kids,
Mm-hmm.
you
But
know.
there's a reason why you're mad. So let's talk about why are you mad
Mm-hmm.
on this day. So how are you feeling today? Well, today I'm sad. Why? What makes you? Why are you feeling sad?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sad because, I've been home all day and, this is just an
No,
example.
absolutely. This is good. This is good.
And, I had a family member that was having some issues, which brought, emotional issues for me. And I didn't have XYZ to talk to. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have you to talk to. And so today I'm just really sad because you weren't here to help me to understand, like, there's another avenue. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to be sad, because when you find sadness, you can also find contentment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I tell a lot of people. Um, you don't, happiness is a moment. We're
Mm-hmm.
happy when we're celebrating life. We're happy when we are celebrating our birthdays and, family members and Christmas time and just different ways to make us happiness. But having that, I have learned that having contentment
Mm-hmm.
in your, just in your being, in your relationship, having that contentment,
Mm-hmm.
that's golden.
Right. And, Paul mentioned that in the Bible that I've learned to be content, right?
Yes, having
That's
contentment.
contentment is a learned behavior,
Mhm.
right? And so the other part that in your throughout your marriage, and notice, let's say you had that sad day, right? Um, and this is something that our listeners can use when your partner is sad or not in their best space. That you can ask, had would there were moments in which he asked you, "Hey, Lauria, is there something I can do to help you to feel better?" Right? Those questions came, and so were there ever a time that you asked him to do something that you knew that he could not do?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. And I think every relationship goes through that.
Okay, so when I say that you asked him knowing that he could not do this, that was your intent. Um, you know what? If you really love me, then you're gonna do X, Y, and Z, or this is what I want you to do. Was that um, something that happened, and how did that?
Yes, there's always, let's flip the script.
Mm-hmm.
If he asked me to do something that I wasn't able to do for whatever reason I couldn't do, maybe I just didn't have the emotional attachment to whatever it was he was asking, or he didn't have the emotional attachment to do whatever that
Right.
I was asking. And sometimes, you know what, we have to understand that everyone is at a different level
Mm-hmm.
emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you expect someone to show up and be there, some people can't. Some people are not able to be that emotional piece all of the time.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And so in that frame, and again going back to just sitting and being emotionally available, right?
Mhm.
Like you were saying, there could come a point where had you practiced, right? And this is me asking you to do something. Had you practiced being emotionally available for me, today you did 2 minutes, next week you did 15 minutes, and
Mhm.
before you know it, you're doing hours with me, and you're happy that you're there, right? That showed that is something that you could do. right? So going back to that now, because you really shocked me when you said that. I asked him to do something that I knew he couldn't do, because I'm of the mindset now, when I look back through my marriage, that I could have done everything that she asked me to do. This is what I'm saying. It was possible, right? So let me just give you an example. You know, I want you to sleep in, and I want to sleep in on the weekend. And I'm in the military. I'm gonna be up. I got to do this, and I'm just like, no. And I never slept in. I never slept in. And when I look back, I could have laid there in the bed happy. I could have turned on that emotion. I could have done that.
But how would you have turned on that emotion when you didn't recognize that?
You're
Everybody
absolutely.
has to get to
Oh,
be in that place of recognizing their emotion and their
oh
abilities.
my
If you
gosh.
don't recognize those
Right.
things,
Right.
then it's a
Come on.
moot point.
Come
How are
on.
you going to do that?
Come on.
You're not able to.
You're at.
So then that brings on the hostility, that brings on the resentment. Then that starts to ignite a flame
Mm-hmm.
because you are thinking, I asked you to do just lay in bed Saturday with me and let's just talk and cuddle and laugh and just an hour. And
Mm-hmm.
you can't do those things. Well, that's where individuals have to understand, why can't I do that? You have to ask yourself, why aren't I available? Why can't I show up at this point? Why can't I show up? And he or she just wants me to just lay here.
And that's
I'm
where
not built that way.
you
That's not true. You
that
are.
you are built. You're absolutely right. But
You
the
are.
thing is, this is where that safe space, that vulnerability comes into play, right? Because I was emotionally, I grew up in a drug house, and so I had this, bag dope for my dad, who was a quadriplegic. I had to give him heroin and cocaine, and I had to do all that stuff, and I had to go to school, and so I was emotionally numb from the 6th grade, 4th grade, right? In fact, since kindergarten. When my dad told me I got hit with a bat, and I had a little scar on my head. I'm like, Dad, can I just stay home? He like, no, you going to school, right? So from kindergarten, emotionally numb, all the way up to 30, no, 47, 45 years old, 40 years of emotional numbness. Now, being that the question was, why can't you sleep in, right?
Mhm.
Right? I didn't feel like that moment, that space was provided for me to say,
Mhm.
you know, I've never gotten a hug. To really
Mm.
talk about, no one has hugged me like, man, it's gonna be okay. In that moment, it was always, suck it up, be tough, don't cry, go back
Right.
out there and defend yourself. And now I have a relationship with this person who is requiring an emotional connection, when
Mhm.
the wounds of my emotions are scaled, and they're locked in. And so who gives me that space?
Well, also, we have to understand that, we grew up in a time where, boys didn't cry. Boys weren't allowed to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
If a boy falls down, it's like, boy, get up. You scrape your knee and you're supposed to brush it off. And, so we weren't taught to have that emotional, almost like, I don't want to say a breakthrough, but it's almost like we weren't allowed
Mm-hmm.
to be emotionally, it just wasn't accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
especially with men. And so you have this little boy that's growing up, and like you said, you
Mm-hmm.
had to give your dad the heroin and the other drugs. And
Mm-hmm.
so you grew up not understanding that it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to just lay in bed with your wife for, I don't know, 20 minutes or an
Right.
hour or whatever. And so you grew up thinking all of these things. Men don't do this. Men aren't, it's just not in them to do that. So that's one of those in nature or nurture questions. And so we just grew up that way. And so in our adult years, now that we're finding that it's okay to feel, it's okay for my husband to cry, it's okay when he's not feeling well if he acts like a baby. Like most men do.
Absolutely, yeah.
But he wasn't raised like that.
Right.
He was not raised like that. So how is he going to know? Our world has evolved.
Right.
Our world has evolved a lot since then. And so I think he and I definitely have had to learn. And I think he was more emotional than I was. But we learned how to communicate. We learned how to talk to each other. And Archie was a very passionate person. He was a strong man. He was a believer of God. He was very responsible. So, but he also grew up in Detroit, Michigan. So a lot of those things, emotions and feelings, and he didn't know.
Right.
He didn't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's as you know, I typically I use Maslow's hierarchy of needs for the relationship now. That the relationship has to have a safe space, and the relationship also has to have a sense of loving and belonging. Right? The relationship, you should feel this way about your relationship. And so you can't have that unless the safety need in the relationship is fulfilled, right? And a reciprocal relationship and reciprocity. So if I'm giving you a safe space, then you're required to give me a safe space.
Absolutely.
But the thing is now, how do we, and as a black men and women, how do we now convince each other that we're safe? Because growing up in Detroit, I mean, growing up in Chicago, no, we rarely got, um, you rarely heard that of a good woman, other than your mother, or your grandmother. Those women got defended, right? But any other woman, we talked about them. We thought that they were going to get us. They were out to get us. You're going to have baby mama drama. She's a gold digger. Da da da. And even on the other side, you're looking at men. And so now you have this relationship where you have that. Watch this cognitive bias, right? How do you begin to turn off that bias in order to begin to listen to your partner as they're pleading to you that I am safe? You can tell me.
Because I think that for Archie and I, we felt close enough to each other um, to talk, to understand, to explain, to cry, to be mad at that moment, to be upset. It's like, okay, I get that you're upset. I get that you are feeling this way. But I think for us, you have to understand like why the person feels that way. Like, what is it that possibly I did to contribute to their feeling that way, to being this way? And so I think as a couple, for one, you have to like each other. You do. You have to like one another. You can love all day long, but do you really like the person? Because
So you think liking someone? So you were saying that you have to like each other. Do you think you can turn on like and turn it off?
I think you can manage it.
You can manage it,
I
right?
think you can manage it.
You can manage whether you like. You can
I
manage your
will
like
say,
level in your.
yeah, it's like a sibling.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a sibling. I love sibling X, but boy, I don't like her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like her. I don't like who she is. I don't like how she treats people, or I don't like her as an individual. So I think for couples, it's very important to, yes, love.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't like someone, think about working.
Mm-hmm.
You have a coworker.
Right.
Okay, so you have this coworker and you don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to be in a relationship with that person?
No, I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with someone who I didn't like.
Okay, so that's my point. I think for Archie and I, not only did we love each other,
Mm-hmm.
we liked each other.
Mm-hmm.
We liked being around each other. We enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
doing things together. We enjoyed, just talking and just spending whatever time that we could together. And I
Mm-hmm.
think for me, he was always trying to catch me. Lauria, can you just
Mm-hmm.
sit down just for maybe, just sit down for just a few minutes. Just come sit next to me. And so he loved watching movies
Mm-hmm.
and he loved Netflix and all
Mm-hmm.
the latest shows on TV. So he would say, baby, can you just come sit down for a minute?
Love language was quality time.
Absolutely for
Mm-hmm.
him.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't always just, I know people construed intimacy with sex.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so wrong. That is so wrong. It's a part of it. It's a big part of it. It is.
It's
But
go ahead.
it's, if you, like you were talking about the five love languages
Mm-hmm.
you had mentioned, you have to understand each other's love language.
Right.
And to me, love language is what's important to that individual.
Mm-hmm.
What is going to not only just turn them on sexually, but
Mm-hmm.
what's going to turn them on mentally? What's going to stimulate our relationship? And it's not always about sex.
No, it's not.
It's not always about sex. And I think a lot of people believe that intimacy is sex.
Mm-hmm.
It's a part of it.
It is. It's the way that I have studied it. It is the highest level of intimacy. And intimacy, I guess, like we said before, intimacy is a level of commitment,
Mhm.
positive, effective, cognitive, and physical closeness that one experiences with a partner in a reciprocal relationship. And so there's cognitive intimacy, which is just exchanging thoughts, being able to share thoughts with a person in a reciprocal fashion. So, for example, if your partner is talking to you about baking cakes and you start talking about automobiles, it depends on if are we sharing hobbies or is the conversation about baking, right? And so in a reciprocal relationship, because she's talking about baking stuff, I have to go down on the inside of me and then share something relative to baking in that form. And that's a true exchange. And so we got to make sure that we understand that part. And then so we have the emotional um intimacy, which is involves sharing emotion and self-disclosure. And then it builds up to the sexual intimacy. And so what happens in a lot of relationships is that we skip the emotional intimacy and we bypass it and go to the sexual intimacy, and therefore we have these unfulfilled sexual experiences that add up over a period of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so making that space where you can talk to each other, because that's where it was. And so to circle back to my earlier question, he's like, I asked him to do something that I knew he couldn't do. But then now when you go back and now think about the questions that because this is my love language, this is what I need, right? All of those things that your partner could have done to fulfill your needs, um, it was possible for them to do that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be upset with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so the other part that I look at, and we got to wrap up. We'll come back to the show on Wednesday. We'll continue this. When we talked about liking our partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we can do is look for reasons to like them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than look for reasons
To not like
to
them.
not like them.
Absolutely.
And so, but that's a learned behavior.
Mm-hmm.
That's a learned behavior where you can look for something in that person that you like and then find it, right? I'm gonna look for something that my partner does well. And I'm gonna get excited about it. That's an intention, right?
It is.
Rather, you know what? I don't like the way you fold those clothes. And so now, because you've done that to that person, when it comes to being vulnerable,
And negativity.
that negativity, because my grandmother taught me how to fold clothes, and because my grandmother and we had this so beautiful relationship, folding clothes this way reminds me of my grandmother. And so you're robbing him of this experience, which at some point those clothes are going to the trash, right? But I'm saying it's like, oh my gosh, and now I can't make this connection with you, all because you got upset with me because of the way my grandmother taught me how to fold clothes. And those were moments with grandma where we would get licorice candy if I folded them right. And we would go down to the candy store and get da da da.
Oh, how sweet.
You got it, but I'm saying, but know that he couldn't share that with you, right? Because that's like salty.
Archie wasn't folding clothes. He throw them in the drawer.
Throw them in the drawer.
Throw
Yeah.
them in the drawer.
Right.
But that was part of, it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
When they say the old saying, choose your battles,
Mm-hmm.
choose your battles, because it makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
It truly makes a difference, because bringing up folding clothes, what's more important to me, to us, to our relationship, how he folds clothes or how he makes me feel safe?
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have how he makes me feel safe.
So therein lies the problem, and that we see in relationships, that because I fought with you,
Mm-hmm.
I've had a fight with you and I lost. Because there was a commander, that one of my mentors, he was saying to me that it's not the fight that destroys the relationship, it's the fallout behind it. It's the fallout, but it's not the actual fight that we had, the battle that we had. It was the fallout behind it. And so during that fallout period, right? And you're needing to be comforted, and that person can't be there simply because you had a fight about something that was going to the trash.
Mm-hmm. It's always something simple.
Mm-hmm.
Something simple we fight about. But at the end of the day, I look back and I wish, my husband was here to throw his clothes in the drawer, or to wash my whites with my jeans. I would take that back any day.
Yeah.
So you look at what's what's really the issue here?
Mm-hmm.
What is like you said, it's the fallout behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what got us to this point?
Yeah.
And so you have to start looking, going back.
Mm-hmm.
You have to delve back into whatever the situation was. Like, how did we get here?
Right.
And understand, okay, so we got here doing this. Okay, so how do we change this, or how do we not get back to that place? That's the challenge that people um, have to understand. You know, we battle,
Mm-hmm.
we misunderstand. There's always
Mm-hmm.
miscommunication, but the most important thing between a couple is communication.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have communication,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't mean just talking just to be talking,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes people do need to vent, and
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. But I'm talking about the communication in survival mode. How
Mm-hmm.
are we going to communicate where we are going to hold it together as a couple?
Right.
How are we going to manage
And
that?
that's where that cognitive intimate connection, why that's so
Mm-hmm.
important, that you know that when I'm interacting with you, that you're walking away with an experience, that you feel a level of closeness between the two of us because we've just exchanged thoughts, regardless of what those thoughts are. And as you were talking, I'm thinking, one of the challenges is to turn off that cognitive bias.
Mm-hmm.
How do you turn off that cognitive bias so that you can be present with your spouse?
Mm-hmm. Listening. You have to listen. You have to give the person a chance to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to be accepting of one another's feelings, because you may feel this way and I may not feel that way, but who am I to say your feelings are wrong? Who am I to say,
Mm-hmm.
well, you feel this way, but I disagree. And that's okay, but you can't tell someone how to feel. You can't tell someone about their emotions.
And therefore, you cannot disagree with the way that they feel.
So you have to accept this person's feelings and say, okay, so you feel this way. Why?
Right. So remember, we talked about, I mentioned looking for reasons to agree. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
looking for a reason to like your partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can also look for reasons to agree with them
Mm-hmm.
and not look for reasons to disagree. While they're talking, you're looking for a reason to disagree. And this is your partner. What they're saying is they're giving a testimony of their experience, of something that happened to them, a trigger that happened maybe 20, 30 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
that something happened that triggered this emotion that I don't like, and I just need help right now processing this. And now, can you protect me from making sure that that doesn't happen again, because I don't want to be triggered like that? Well, you should be able to control. No, I can't. I was in Afghanistan and I'm coming out of a war zone, right? And I'm in Starbucks and the microwave goes off. I'm thinking like, oh my
It's a
God, rocket
trigger.
attack. A
Mm-hmm.
rocket attack, because it was similar to
Mm-hmm.
that sound. And so, but it took some time to be able to do that. And having that safe space, preserving that safe space
Mm-hmm.
for your partner to share their truth is
Absolutely.
important.
Absolutely.
So we are running up on time. We got to do this again. This was amazing. You shared, you were vulnerable. We appreciate it. You gave tremendous insight on a beautiful relationship, that when you persevere through the hard times, right? It might not be the remedy might not be what you think it is or what you expect it to be, But regardless, if you both commit to persevering through it, right? When you get to the horizon and you see the sun and you can sit up and like, man, I wish my partner was here right now. I wish my husband's here right now because of the memories that we collected.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's about collecting unique experiences.
Absolutely.
And that this is the glue, or this is, I should say this is the sugar in the spaghetti, right? He like, oh my gosh, who why does the spaghetti taste like this? It's the sugar. It's the sugar. So we close on that. Again, this is your host, Champ Franklin, Intimate Discoveries, where every episode is one step closer to you experiencing a phenomenal relationship. I'll see you on Wednesday at 4 p.m. sharp. Champ out.